So we'll wait a little bit. It says we're live. I'll wait for probably another 20 seconds. So for those
Okay.
that are joining in, once you do join in, we're live on two Facebook channels, one Facebook group, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. And then it'll be available on replay and on the podcast. So,
Wow.
Aaron, you're all over the place.
Thanks to you, I am. Yeah. I feel very special on a Good Friday.
That's right. This Good
Yeah.
Friday. For some of us that still work and I was like, oh yeah, it's Good Friday. I'm so sorry.
Well, I was just remarking to someone, I've never been so busy on a Good Friday. Usually it's pretty quiet, and I'm just back to back today. It's nuts. But it's also like we have Ramadan, Passover, Easter. It's like a super holy spiritual week of reflection or time of reflection, which I love. I love this time of year.
Yeah, I'll get started on that probably in the next couple hours.
There you go.
Well, we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm super excited for all of you that are going to join. We have Brianna that says hello over from LinkedIn. So, hey, Brianna. I am super excited for this discussion. This will be available on replay and on the PR Yourself with Leah Frazier podcast, because this topic is so incredibly important. And it doesn't even really matter what industry you're in, but I know just being involved in PRSA, we're constantly having conversations about the intersection of AI and PR and what are some things we can put on automation to make our lives easier. And then just like this magical unicorn or something that just fell out of the sky, I got an email about Aaron Kwittken of Profit. And it was like, do you want him on the podcast? Because he can talk to you about this intersection of AI and PR and how it can make our lives easier. And pretty much if you don't get with the program, you're going to get left behind. So you kind of need to do it. And so it's like, please, Aaron, come tell us what we need to do.
Oh my gosh, you're way too kind. I
So
appreciate
welcome
you.
to my show.
Thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be here, and I appreciate all the kind words.
No, thank you for making time. And like I said, this is a very, very timely and it will be an ongoing discussion for a very, very long time. But before we get into that, I want to know a little bit about your background, because you have done PR, you've done branding, you've done so much within the scope. Tell us a little bit about you and how we got to Profit today.
Sure. And, thanks for the shout out earlier for PRSA. I'm also immediate past president of PRSA in New York, and I miss it. I mean, I'm still active, obviously. Carmela Glover is now the president of PRSA in New York, and she's a force. I love her. But I have to say, it's such an incredible organization, especially at the chapter level.
Yeah.
Really smart, passionate people who are always looking forward and learning and developing. So yeah, real quick, I have been in the business for a little bit more than 30 years now. If I took off my hat, everybody could see that's the 30 years. I'm just wearing my Fight On USC hat for my daughter. But I had the great privilege of being able to build a product as a user. I love our tradecraft. I love our profession. I've run large agencies, started my own agency. It's called Kwittken, changed the name to KWT Global, sold it in 2010 to MDC Partners. They merged with Stagwell. I stayed, and I had the great fortune of meeting someone named Mark Penn, who came into MDC back in 2019. So pre-pandemic, he ran this little like Shark Tank competition where he said to all the agency leaders, hey, come up with an idea that sits in an intersection of marketing and technology, and we will fund it. We'll fund the MVP. So we ended up winning. And first of all, it's always nice to beat out your ad agency colleagues who I have great respect for, but it always feels good. And Mark is an interesting guy. His whole background's data. His whole background is, political strategy consulting, political science, polling. He was chief strategy officer at Microsoft, so he appreciates the intersection of technology and narrative. And he also ran a big agency that was once called Burson Marsteller, now BCW. So we spent 2020 building the MVP, and then we started selling in 2021. And so I've been living this AI world for a number of years now. A lot of people at the time said, well, why are you giving up your day job? I said, well, I have a great person who can succeed me at the agency. Her name is Gabrielle Zucker, and she's doing an amazing job. I'm happy to stay involved with a few clients here and there. So I'm still chair of the agency, but I'm not involved day to day. But I do believe the future is this notion of a communications engineer, meaning you don't have to have an engineering background, but you need to have an engineering mindset as a communicator. How can we become more predictive, productive, and performative as PR people? Using data to historically, our industry is based on instinct and gut and sometimes charm. And that has always been a frustration for me as a practitioner. So the other frustrating thing for me was, as PR people, we spend all of our time helping others tell their stories of transformation and innovation. Yet we never really look at ourselves and we're like, we do the same thing over and over again and get the same result. And so much of the industry, when it comes to comms tech, was focused on how did I do these monitoring services, which is important because we're always asked, how do I know it's working? I'm trying to solve the question of how do I do better?
Yes.
And the two questions behind that are, who's interested in my story and how do I make my story more interesting? So who's interested is predictive AI. How do I make it more interesting? Generative AI. That's how I break that down.
Ooh.
We started off in predictive. And, Leah, my issue has always been, like when I started back in this a long, long time ago, we used to there was no internet. It was press release parties. We'd wait 2 days, call a reporter. We'd have conversations and relationships. I would actually read, and then I would connect my pitch to what a reporter has written on in the past. I don't think there's any malintent in this, but a lot of those media database companies just put their databases online. And now you have young and mid-level people just spamming the shit out of reporters.
Yeah.
I wrote for Forbes for 10 years. I stopped in 2021. I still get pitches because the data it's outdated and it's frustrating. And so
they're charging an astronomical amount. And they're not considering the fact that even with a lot of these digital media outlets, their turnover, you may have a freelancer that's writing for 20 different outlets and they leave one and go to the other, and you still have all this old, outdated information in there. So that's a great point.
I'm glad you mentioned that because we've been a lot of the industry is focused on tracking the reporter. So what we did is we turned it on its head. I'm like, let's track the content. I should be able to predict future media interest and sentiment based on what they've written on the past. And the same way that movie studios and book publishers do this when it comes to predetermining commercial future viability of a script, right? So that was the original idea behind Profit, to become more predictive. And that was the first kind of use case. And then about 1.5 years ago, we started working on the generative stuff. Why? Because our customers like, yes, I don't want to spam reporters anymore. And I get it. We want to replace media databases with media targets. We want it to be intelligent. But my team's not really, can you get my team to write better? And my answer is no.
Yes, I hope they're not watching, but let me clap that. Because these babies can't write.
Yeah, and when I ran my agency and my teams, I always used to say to myself, how can I find someone? I just need someone to get me like 50-60% of the way there. The other thing is, how do I make something that's long and technical a little bit pithier and more interesting? And that's where Taylor came in. And Taylor, we launched at South by, and then I was over at USC, and we've been doing webinars. And Taylor is our generative AI writing tool. Taylor can create a pitch. It can create social posts in like 10, 15 seconds, which is pretty amazing.
That is.
And then we tied Taylor into our overall prediction engine for reporters to surface reporter interest and sentiment. And we called it Taylor because I'm a fan of Billions. I love Succession, but Billions, I don't know. Do you watch Billions or not?
No, I need to.
Well, you look this up. There's a character in Billions named Taylor, and they are this algorithmic genius who is like clairvoyant, sees around corners. And what I love most about them is they challenge the status quo. They always say, how can I be better? How can we be more creative in what we're doing and more performative? So that was a project name for Profit. And then I named our generative AI tool after that character in Billions. We have about 850 users on the platform, brands and agencies sometimes working together. We have a freemium version we just released. We have like a pro version, which allows up to 5 users with limited functionality. And then we have the full-on enterprise, unlimited runs, unlimited usage. And it's just been an interesting pivot in my journey as a PR person. I love the tradecraft. Trying to put my logic into a spreadsheet and then have that logic that then get turned into user stories and code and algorithms has been incredibly humbling. But I do believe that in the same way that we use things like Grammarly and spell check and Excel and calculators, this is just a system. It's never going to replace us. It never should replace us. It's just to help us become, again, more performative, productive, and predictive. And I don't want to automate anything. I just want to try to remove some of the pain of the tedious nature of what we do. And I do think that if we do that, we can probably impact upskilling, and we could also probably lessen attrition and improve retention, especially at agencies where that's an agency guy or a covered agency guy. It's 25%, which is a big number. That's a big number.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were speaking, just about how we're not replacing, humans, or we're not replacing any of those things that maybe, you need a human being to do. And I think that's one of the fears that a lot of people have is the moment you adopt any type of artificial intelligence, we're taking away jobs. And so I'm glad you addressed that.
Yeah. No, I think we might even add jobs. And by the way, I think we're probably going to add happiness. I mean, so many people go to universities and spend an outrageous amount of money on higher education, which we should. It's fine. But we're not using it always, right? So I think this is going to hopefully help us perform higher value tasks and do the counseling that our clients really need. I always think about it like when something goes wrong, who gets called first? Who are the first responders of marketing? We are. They don't call the ad agency. They're not calling social media, maybe, but just maybe to help spread a message. But we're the thinkers here. So I'm trying to make us think more, not just do more, right?
Right. And Brianna was saying, we regain our time, and it's all about efficiency. And I totally agree. Like, you're talking and I'm like, okay, who's this target audience? Who's this for? Because I could see myself using it with a small team. And I was just complaining today, like, we have so many press releases that need to go out because there's so many events in Dallas right now and so many pitches, and it's overwhelming. It's so
Yes,
overwhelming.
it is. And the whole press release thing is interesting because it's sometimes it's hard to be first. I definitely feel like I have a big X on my back, and we're still a startup, right? Um, but I see all these companies now and our competitors, they're like, we just announced a press release generator. I'm like, really? That's like 5% of what we do. Like that is it's almost insulting. I'm so innovative. I just put a press release generator into the market. Really? What the fuck is that going to do? I'm pitching. What I'm doing is I'm pitching all the time. I'm not press releasing. It's
Yes.
a verb. It's just
Thank
so
you.
offensive to me. And they're just kind of just jump on the train, right? They're trying to jump on, they're going to put .ai after everything. And, before we got on the air, we're talking about .ai, like the island of Anguilla is like super happy because they're getting all sorts of fees now. Um, and it is funny because years ago when we launched, I got blocked by a lot of spam filters because a lot of folks' email systems thought that my emails were sus because it said .ai. Now it's getting through everywhere. It's like, okay, come
Yeah.
on in.
It's
AI
the
is
it's the
welcome.
new trend.
Yeah,
It's like,
right.
hurry up and get your .ai URL before it's taken.
Yeah, I bet people name it. I'm sure Musk will name his whatever. Heck, he's got lots of kids. His next child .ai or AI, right?
Yeah. This is so interesting. Walk us through so would you guys still consider that you're in beta? And hi, Brian.
Mhm.
Welcome. No, so you're out of beta. This thing is like,
Oh yeah, no. We were an MVP back in 2020 and into 2021. We're probably on our fourth generation product now. Hi,
awesome.
Brian. I like how LinkedIn does that. It's super cool.
I do too.
So yeah, no, this is very real. We're constantly iterating on it, right? And the thing I've learned about software is that you're always on, just like we're always on for our clients. You're always on creating enhancements. Soon, you're going to be able to create crisis statements. I'm going to train the algorithm to draft crisis statements, and there are more, even though we all like to think that there's a lot of art in what we do, and there is, but there's also a lot of rote and formula and linearity to what we do. So, you know, uh, unplanned executive successions, product recalls, government enforcements, labor issues, litigation. I mean, there is some structure to those sentences. So we're going to upload some of those templates into our platform. You'll be able to pick like a tone, like apologetic or contrite, cooperative, and you'll be able to do internal comms, crisis statements. And again, it's just kind of first drafts. But it really, I think the magic is tethering together generative and predictive. No one's doing that. It's really hard. I understand why. It requires a lot of data and a lot of logic, and we have to keep changing our logic to accommodate for how the environment and the media industry is changing.
Yeah.
There's so many freelancers, as you know, and which is why I like doing it this way, because it doesn't matter if, Leah is with TechCrunch or Fast Company. I'll know because I'm following what you're writing, not who you are necessarily.
I love that. I love that because
Yeah.
sometimes I freelance for several publications, and Muckrack does not pick up everything. It doesn't pick up certain outlets, and so some people don't even know to pitch me, or they
Right.
don't know that I've been writing consistently, because some of those platforms, like you say, they're just not as sophisticated enough to track all of that data and that information. So
Yeah, and I'm sure you get as
I'll
many
do.
shitty pitches as I do. It's like I just got a pitch the other day asking if I would be interested in covering the Gypsy Kings tour, and I'm like, nothing offensive against the Gypsy Kings, but I'm like, what is it about me? Like, I have a podcast called Brand on Purpose, and then I would write about reputational issues for the Drum and for Forbes. How is that related? How is that relevant? It's because they're just blasting it out.
Yeah, they're just maybe not even clicking a box. It's just send off.
Right, and you wonder why people are unhappy because they're living in a sea of despair and rejection.
Yeah,
Why is no one responding to me? Well, because you actually have to do the work. I'd rather you send out 10 really smart pitches than 150 bad ones.
yeah,
Imagine this though. So we're able to personalize pitches. So we are scraping the last 3 articles and looking at your LinkedIn, and we're trying to then relate what you wrote most recently to what we want to pitch you to write right now. And we're going to be able to do that not just one by one, but like 20 at a time. And then you can pitch from your native email. I don't like platforms that want you to pitch from their platform.
yeah,
That makes me very uncomfortable. Again, it's so interesting to build something as a practitioner versus like just some third party tech person,
yeah.
because these are things that are concerning to me. I don't need anybody eavesdropping on my back and forth with a reporter, even though they might not be. The fact that they could
Yeah.
makes me very uncomfortable.
I love that you're hitting, like, you talking is hitting every single pain point, like, as it enters my mind, where I'm like, I know we move things very slow at my agency because we take the time to personalize all of our pitches. But if you're saying, look, we can do that, okay, check, done.
Yeah,
Don't want to send it through a platform. No disrespect to a Cision or a Meltwater or whatever, but if our reporters are used to seeing it from my email address, or for
right,
some of them, they've adjusted the firewall so it could come through. I don't
right,
want to send it through your platform. So I'm so
right.
glad that you are the person kind of like advocating for our pain points here.
Totally, totally. Yeah, and I just think that as we continue to kind of innovate in our industry, it's only going to get more exciting. I've been trying to think about the arc of my own career and like what was transformative, and this is really going to date me, but email was hugely transformative, right? The internet was massively transformative, social was transformative, and the iPhone, right? This though, AI in general and AI techniques will probably have the most consequential impact on our business in the history of our business. I really, truly believe that. And think about it, you have your own agency. Wouldn't it be great if you weren't paid hourly? Is that really a true reflection of your value to your clients? I don't think it is. I had struggled for years trying to move to value-based billing and just projects, not always have to say, well, just because that took me a quarter an hour, it's not the value isn't $250 when your stock appreciated by $200 million, right? So I think AI might force, hopefully, a value-based billing discussion between the agency and the brand or the client. We have to get procurement on board, but I do think that it's more than just being performative and productive and predictive. I do think that potentially it's going to reset our value and get us from behind the curtain and put us in front of the curtain with our clients. And I say this as an agency guy, like
Aaron
covered agency
Kwittken for president.
guy.
Aaron,
Yeah,
I'm gonna make a shirt.
yeah,
I
too funny.
will like seriously, because how many times, and I'm thinking about the amount of money I've had to spend just for the data and the reports to support what you just said. Like, yeah, maybe it did take half an hour, but maybe that
Yeah,
was 5 or 10 years of relationships that had to be built for me to just text somebody to get you on, that TV show you wanted to do, or whatever. Like and I know
totally.
that is wearing a lot of PR agencies and publicists out. That piece alone, the
It
argument,
is.
the back and forth.
It is, and isn't it irritating when a client says to you, "Who do you know? What relationships do you have?" It's not just about that anymore. And just because we might know someone or have a relationship with a reporter doesn't mean that we can wholly influence whether or not they're going to write. It's so multifactorial. And sometimes you still have some clients and brands who are like, "Yep, we're going to move on to the next agency because we've exhausted their media contacts." And that whole notion of agency disposability, I find deeply
Mm.
offensive and troubling.
Mhm.
And I've done it. I've been there. I've been on the pointy end of that stick way too many times. And we just have to change that. And I do believe that comms tech will change that over time.
Yeah,
We're better than that,
I'm
I
glad
guess is
you
what I'm
brought that
saying.
up too, because I was at lunch with one of my friends who used to host our morning show here, and another producer at former producer at one of the news stations, and we were having that conversation. They were shocked to hear from me. I don't even know how we got on the subject, but I was like, "Yeah, you'll have a person that just kind of hops. Before you know it, every single agency or publicist in the area has represented this person because they think the grass is greener over here, or maybe their contacts are better over here, and they just hop and hop and hop, and
Yeah,
it's just, I don't know, it's discouraging.
it is discouraging. And as just as discouraging as the staff churn and client churn.
Yeah.
So I always wondered, why is it churning? Why is it churning? Maybe because we don't charge enough, right? And that's kind of a weird way of thinking about it, but maybe. But also, I do think that PR in general has had both an interiority and an inferiority complex. Inferiority as it relates to, the ad folks have big budgets, they get all the awards, everything they're doing is like very transparent, right? Yet what we're doing is not no less important. If anything, sometimes it's more important, especially when it comes to internal stakeholders and shareholders and whatnot. And then interior, and then interiority, meaning we just do the same thing over and over again. We're just navel gazers. And it's like, well, this is the way it's done. We're so precious about these things. And we have to be a little bit less precious and think about how can we perform better?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't just be on us. We need tools to help us. So this is, I think, one of the most exciting moments in the history of moments when it
Yeah.
comes to our industry.
I think we're all like, all the agencies and firms are gonna get together and be like, how can we invest? Let's make this the absolute best because it's gonna solve
Yeah,
so many of our problems.
yeah.
We have Nikisha here who says she just really appreciates our perspective
Oh, that's sweet.
on the industry. I think sometimes we don't really talk about it as much as we should, so people get that, global understanding of how all of this works.
Yeah.
I know we're running up on our time. I do want to ask you, for folks who are maybe curious about profit, or they're like maybe scared to dip their toe in the AI pool, like what's some first steps that we can do to try to, get on board?
So we have a free version. Don't get frustrated by it. We only, it's free, meaning that we give you a little taste before we start charging you. But you can play around on it and get a sense for it. You can just go to prprofit.ai and sign up for a wait list. It's not a long wait list. You'll be in a day or two. The reason why I have that is because I'm a PR person and my background's crisis. I'm very nervous, and I want to make sure that the right people, the right organizations, and not bad actors get on our platform. So we have humans vetting, including myself, to make sure these people are who they say they are, and they're here for good, not for ill will. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. I would honestly play around with Bard, and I would play around with Chat GPT. I mean, the thing about Chat GPT is it's a novelty, it's fun. We're creating templates on top of open AI, and I think that the best thing for people to do is be curious. I mean, that's always like a hallmark of a great PR person anyways, curiosity. But
Mhm.
be curious, play around with these tools, don't be afraid of them. If anything, especially if you're in a small agency, it's going to give you edge. I was joking around with someone earlier today that if I was my younger self, a lot younger self today, I would go out of pocket and even just spend money on my own and not even try to expense it with my boss, just to give me edge. Just like I have like an account, just like I belong to a gym, I belong to Lifetime Fitness, right? this is like getting me in like shape, right, behind the scenes to be a better PR professional. But obviously, you should try to convince your either if you're in-house or if you're an agency that people should start paying for trials and letting you do this. This is part of professional development.
I agree.
And there's books out there that are really interesting, depending on how highbrow you want to get. The Age of AI by Henry Kissinger and Eric Schmidt is really good. And then I read this book, which was the inspiration for this, in addition to Taylor, a couple years ago, by an author named Jill Lepore, and it's called If Then. And it goes way back to the 50s, because that's when data science really was taking hold, when CPG companies were using it to determine who wants to buy this box of soap or this detergent or this toothpaste. The Kennedy campaign in 1960 was the first political campaign to use advanced computing and really a form of AI to help understand what voters wanted and to manage your messaging against what the voters wanted, in terms of issues. So it's actually very controversial back then. So it's not new. In the same way that when you go to Netflix, it says, if you like this, you'll like that. That's a form of AI. It's all about learning and templating and trying to determine where you want to go next. So that's what I would encourage people to do, and read more and talk about it and just really kind of play around with it. Don't be afraid of it.
And this last question from Brianna again, and I was right on track to ask you about the data and reporting that comes with Profit, because I know a lot of our clients, that's what they want. Every 30 days, they want to report. But Brianna is like, do you think, when we go back to what we were talking about earlier, do you think it's because we don't charge enough, or clients just want the data or get in the door and create their relationship? Is that what's declining our value to them, I guess?
It can be, I think, and sorry for the dogs barking. They're
No,
just
it's okay.
they're in violent agreement.
I have pets, I get it.
It's just so interesting because I think that relationships matter, but you're not going to create relationships through spamming people, right? So I think it's a combination of things. We do need relationships, both with our clients and with influencers and media. But because we don't charge enough, I do think there's this perception that our value isn't very high, or isn't as high as an ad agency or as someone else. And that is bothersome to me. And I know it sounds weird, but that we have to flip the script on that.
Yeah, and thank you, Brianna, for the question. And last question for the platform. So there is a data and reporting element, or is there something, because I know you're like our advocate, is there something that can be shown to the client as far as, I don't know, the efficiency of it all, or like?
Yeah, so you can show media interest by outlet and by reporter. We force rank them. You can export that to a PDF. You can export media lists into a PDF or to a CSV file, and also test different. It's almost like pitching in the cloud before you pitch in real life. You can test different versions of your content to see what media might be interested in it, which I think is really fascinating. So it's really bringing us back to strategy. Instead of leading with the tactic, you're leading with the strategy. What we don't do yet is we don't monitor then what happened after that. There's so many companies that are really good at that. We have a partner called Peak Metrics that does that really, really well. They also do very good kind of signal to noise monitoring around mis and disinformation. We haven't gotten into the CRM or the monitoring game. And in part, it's because I feel like that ground is covered very well by other companies. But where the white space is really is, it's a blank space really is, how do we get better at what we're doing? How do we perform better at the front end? And if you perform better in the front end, there's less questions about reporting, quite frankly.
Awesome. Well, Aaron, I thank you so much for your time. It is prprofit.ai. If you want more information, take advantage if you're a PR professional, or we train a lot of small business owners to do their own PR. That's what started the podcast, because they couldn't afford an agency or a firm. So try that out and see how it works for you, and go ahead and just go to the next level. That free trial doesn't last very long.
Exactly. Well, we try. And if anybody wants a demo, I'm happy to demo. It's one of my favorite things to do. I think I do like 30 of them a day now. I've never been busier, which is so funny because a year ago today, we were doing fine. We were signing people up, but I wouldn't say it was a headwind, but there was no tailwind. Now the tailwind is enormous.
Yeah.
So it's just such a pleasure to meet you, and I'm so appreciative of being on your show. Thank you so much.
And you have thoroughly convinced me. Years ago, Mark Cuban keynoted our Dallas Startup Week. He was our keynote speaker, and he said, the future is AI, the future. And he said it over and over again. And I was just like, no, I was one of those ones like, no, I don't want to learn it. I don't want anything to do with it. And I'm
Yeah,
just seeing it all come into fruition. And I was like, all right, Mark, you were right, as always.
it just takes, you have to be patiently impatient is how I describe it. Like anything else, if it's worth it, it's hard, right?
And Brian just says, I'm not in PR, but sounds
Yeah.
like those that embrace and learn how to use AI, we benefit from this technology. I plan to talk about AI on our podcast. Thanks for the discussion. Thanks for tuning in, Brian. Thank you, Aaron, for your time. Super excited about Profit. You guys go out and at least do the free trial. Try it out. Make your lives easier. And we'll definitely be following for your success or your continued success, Aaron. So thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
And hope to see you at Icon in Tennessee, in Nashville, right?
Yes. We're planning all of our Dallas stuff around Icon. So I guess I'll be there.
Yeah, I'll see you there.
All right.
I'll
Bye,
see you there.
Aaron.
Take
Bye,
care. Have a great
everyone.
weekend.
You too.
Happy
Bye-bye.
everything. Okay.
Bye.